You see it all the time. The China threat. It's used to divert the people's money to arms dealers in the US, the EU, the UK, Australia, as well as allies in Asia, which are Japan and South Korea. But what is the China threat? I went through more than 40 references to it in texts and videos and discovered 5 things which it actually isn't, and also what it is. Number 1, the China threat is not really a plan to take over the world. There are plenty of hilariously extreme headlines which say that it is. China's blueprint for global dominance, says Axios, a group that takes cash from the US government. Money and muscle pave China's way to global power, says the New York Times, which is based in a country where money and muscle are trying hard to retain US global power. China has 2 paths to global domination, says a typical think tank article written by a pair of rather notorious China demonizers. But I know of no serious analyst, East or West, which backs the line that such a plan exists. It's just not true. Number 2, the China threat is not a plan to introduce China's system across the planet in the way that the West, which is just 13% of the world, tries to force its ideology on the other 87% of us. China doesn't even push its governance system in China. It has numerous special zones where alternative forms of governance are actively experimented with. 3, the China threat is not disputes over bits of sea or land. Territorial friction is normal. Japan has disputes, Vietnam has them, the Philippines has them, as do Malaysia, Indonesia and Brunei. Taiwan has them, and of course the US has them, as does the UK, France and so on. The media acts as if only China has them. No, why would that be? Why are they trying to fool us with that? Are we fooled? Sorry, no. 4, the China threat is not attempts to control the world's elections. Yes, from time to time there are accusations of interference, but these can all be tracked back to intelligence sources, people who actually create disinformation about enemies of the West in their job descriptions. Occasionally they even admit that their accusations about China interference are untrue. And once they described it as a game. Incidentally, most of these false accusations come from a country which is infamous for actually interfering in other countries' politics. Oh, the irony. 5, the China threat is not that China is a giant gulag in which 1.4 billion innocent people are prisoners needing to be rescued. Although you do see that image pushed regularly. Even the most extreme xenophobes today admit that the Chinese people in general are a cohesive population which is rather proud of its leadership. So the China threat is not what we're told it is. But you know what? Keep reading. The China threat does exist. If you ditch the mainstream media and instead look at data and evidence, talk to people, you can see what it really is. Number 1, the real China threat is that it's becoming obvious to everyone that China's rather good at capitalism, international trade. Yeah, it makes mistakes, sure, but it sometimes does the whole free enterprise thing better than the West. Uh-oh. And that's why the US has launched its war on capitalism, preventing international trade, coercing others to join in with bans and things. Number 2, the real China threat is that China's peaceful rise shows that Western ideology, which says that you must have liberal democracy and a free press to succeed, is false. Check out this quote.
And why do you think the Western media, especially in some developed countries, want to smear China, especially in Xinjiang?
No, basically, when you are successful, they feel this is very difficult to explain from their end of history thesis. The end of history thesis goes like this: unless you adopt a Western political model, your country, your economy can thrive. And Chinese success shows no. We have our own approach, which is better and more successful than your approach. And this will be a tremendous blow, not only to the Western hard power, but also soft power. And this is something they value very much. When they are losing soft power, the result to liars, smear campaign, this is nasty. But as I said, a lie is a lie, and eventually people know. They lift a piece of stone to drop on their own feet.
3. The real China threat is that it takes the search for renewable energy seriously, which shows up the fact that many other nations talk about it, but don't do it. Oh, China too has much room for improvement in that regard, but at least it's trying seriously. 4. The real China threat is that he envisages a multicultural shared future for humanity, instead of dominance by a single, rich, weapons-obsessed minority. Check out this clip.
We must be number one in the world to lead the world in the 21st century.
Incidentally, rule by an elite minority is, of course, one of the definitions of fascism. And most of all, the real China threat is that it makes possible a future in which the world is not dominated by the West's military-industrial complex. That's bad news for rich people in the West, whose main concern seems to be, how can they get richer? Now here's The Nation, an interesting US magazine. But for Pentagon contractors, Washington's ever more intense focus on the prospect of war with China has one overriding benefit. It's fabulous for business. The threat of China's military, real or imagined, continues to be used to justify significant increases in military spending, especially on the next generation of high-tech systems, ranging from hypersonic missiles to robotic weapons and artificial intelligence. And that is why the media never stops giving the wrong impression about the China threat. It's a way of taking money from your pocket, from her pocket, from his pocket, from their pockets, and send that money to these guys, people who already have plenty of money. Way back in April 1953, US President Dwight Eisenhower warned that it would be a tragedy to see a world dominated by the military-industrial complex.
Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. This world in arms is not spending money alone. It is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children.
This world in arms is not just spending money alone, it is spending the sweat of its labourers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children. Lots to think about. Peace.